There we are. So we're looking today at
Thank you.
The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 19, which I'll read out first and then call up the text. Ya enam vitti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau navijanito nayang hanti nahanyate. By the way, do you all have in front of you a fully legible text? Do I actually need to do screen share for this bit? Does anyone positively need me to do a screen share?
Yes, I do.
Okay, right. Because the problem with a screen share is that, well, it's okay for me. I'm sitting on my desktop computer and I've got a bank of 3 screens. My middle screen is where I've got the gallery. I can see all of you. The screen on the left is the shared screen. And the screen on my right is documents waiting to be pulled across onto the shared screen. So far, so good. But when we record it, if you record it to the cloud, all that happens is, firstly, if I record it onto my own computer, if I report onto my own computer, it works with any private computer recording Zoom. If you have a shared screen, all the recording will show is the shared screen. Recording onto the cloud, it will show the shared screen plus just one face. So maybe it's more important to see the text than each other's faces. We can't have it all. Okay. Those who want shared screen have to carry the day for utilitarian purposes. So here we go then. We'll share screen, share 1. So I'll read it through again. Ya enam vitti antaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau navijanito nayang hanti nahanyate. So vitti, it's from the root vid, meaning to know, which we all know very well, of course. It's where we got Veda and Vidya and Avidya. Of course, the Avidya, better known in Pali as the Avidya, non-knowledge, the general Buddhist term for ignorance. So Veti, third person singular, knows. It's a class 2 verb. I take it that you all know immediately what I mean by a class 2 verb now.
No,
some of you are looking a bit shifty.
You can't assume that, James, I'm afraid.
Okay. You get a class 1 verb, which is by far the most common class of verb, where they're called thematic verbs. I don't know why they use that term. Where there's always we have the root, then short then the personal endings. They take a simple root, char, meaning to go. You get charati, charami, charasi, charati. Got the ati ending from bhu bhavati, ni nayati, this vadati. In the class 2 verbs, there's no there. The ti ending, mi, si, ti, are added directly onto the root. And the root is in strengthened form, with guna form. So it's not hanati, but hanti. not vedati, but veti. Note that by internal sandhi, ved with the d plus the t of the t, so the d has to change to t by internal sandhi. That gives us veti. And we've got two class two verbs in this verse, because han is also a class two verb. Now the form hanati does exist, but it's less common, far less common. Far more common is as a class two verb hanti. Incidentally, it's the opposite in Pali, where hanati is more common. Hanti is poetic and less common. So ye enam veti hantaram. No, hantaram, of course, this is a killer. That's our same root, han. Hantri makes an accusative, hantaram. It's the same ta ending. The root is tri. But it makes it, in the nominative singular, the tri just comes along ah. It's exactly the same agent ending that makes a doer out of a noun, as in the Latin tor, praeceptor, lector, so which comes straight into English in the same form. It comes into Italian just with a torre, which you would expect. So it's exactly that same ending which we see here. So so the han to kill, a hantri stem form, hantri killer, accusative hantaram. So who this knows a killer? In other words, the person who understands this, meaning the Atman, to be a killer, with the verb to be is left out here.
James,
So
is there any connection with the English verb to hunt, or is that just coincidence that it sounds similar?
It's almost too good to be true, isn't it?
I mean, hunter just sounds so like hunter.
Hantara and hunter. Actually, yes, it is, because the hunter.
I mean,
not
so much in Derbyshire, but in perceived pronunciation, it sounds very similar.
How are you going to pronounce it in Derbyshire?
Hunter.
A hunter. Yeah.
Hunter.
That's a hunter. In Irish, a hunter. Actually, it would be very good if it were, and it possibly is. That's something I will need to check. I'm just making a note to check. But there is actually, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. There's a far more common English word, just our verb to hit is actually cognate with that verb. Note that in the past participle, it's slightly irregular. In the past participle, we would expect to see hanta. But what happens is the nasal drops and it just becomes hatta. We see the same phenomenon, for example, in gum, which we would expect to see for the past participle ganta, but it's not, it's gata. And we've got another irregular that loses the nasal, which is the root jan, meaning to give birth or to be born. It's got a double irregularity because it makes its past participle jata. The double irregularity is firstly that the n is lost, and secondly that the a is lengthened, so we get jata, born. It's from that word that we get the Jataka stories, the stories of the previous births of the Buddha, and equally the verbal noun with a t instead of the ta of the past participle, where you get like Buddha, Buddhi, Jata, Jati. Jati literally means birth. In fact, in modern India, in modern Hindi, you would ask somebody, if you want to ask what their caste is, which might be necessary. I had to do it once in a house I was staying. We had a plumber round, and the loo got blocked. You see, and you can't ask a Brahmin or a Kshatriya to attend to the plumbing in the toilet. So we had to ask him, see, aapki jati kya hai? Literally, what is your birth? And he indicated quite politely that his birth was rather superior to doing the kind of plumbing work that we wanted. So we had to get somebody who was sort of a rather lower jati, who was very happy to do that work. Anyway, so there we are. So looking back to this hantaram, although we have an irregularity in that the past participle is hatta, not hanta, when you get the agent noun ending in a tarum, the cognate the Latin torem, it is as normal added directly to the root, so the hanta, not hatta, but hanta. The structure of this first pada, ye'enveti hantaram, who knows this, a killer, knows in the sense here, understands, or in his perception, the soul kills somebody, the soul is a killer, knows it to be a killer. We've got who knows it a killer is actually a perfectly correct way of saying who understands it as a killer, or who understands that it is a killer. We have exactly the same kind of expression in English, where you can say, I believe that you are innocent. Okay? I believe that you are innocent. We also say, I believe you to be innocent, which is how you'd have to say in Latin, te innocentem credo. Or innocentem, no, yes, that's right. Was it te innocens esse credo? Which one is correct, Marco? Or can you say both? Te innocentem credo or te innocens esse credo? How's your Latin, Marco?
Almost completely oblivious, forgotten.
Not to worry. But anyway, so you can say in English, I believe that you are innocent. I believe you to be innocent. Now, in even more abbreviated and very literary English, we can say, I believe you innocent. We don't use that form very much now, but we can use it in English. And that is exactly reflected, or the English that I've just said exactly reflects this way of saying it in Sanskrit. Ya enam veti hantaram, who knows this, who understands this, a killer, namely, who understands this, the Atman, to be the one who kills. Yeshchainam manyate hatam, and who thinks that it is killed. This yah is the relative pronoun, is who. A bit of sandhi here, that I'm sure you've all got. If you look down where I'm highlighting here, with the sandhi vigraha, with the sandhi taken out, it is, the word standing on its own is yaha. But near the sorry, I was highlighting it, yaha. And this is yaha with the sandhi vigraha in the Devanagari. Where you get the visarga followed by a word beginning with a ch. So as in here, yahcha, it becomes yashcha. So yahcha becomes yashcha. I'm looking particularly at you, Barry, with now your gradual but successful absorption of the rules of Santi.
Yes, indeed, James.
I hope this is all going in. Now, the very first two words here demonstrate another rule of Santi, that where you get the a with visarga, we know it would be yaha, but now it's followed by a word beginning with a vowel other than another short a. All that happens there is the visarga drops, so ya enam. So the yaha enam becomes ya enam. So whoever knows this to be the killer, yeshchainam, and who, yeshcha enam manyate, and who considers it hatam, to be killed, who considers it killed, who thinks of it as the killer, and who considers it killed. And the second line goes on to say, well, they're both wrong. It neither kills nor is killed. Here we see in hatam, this is the we see the third person singular there, hanti, it kills, not hanati, remember hanti. We see here the agent noun, accusative, hantaram, and here we see the past participle, hatam. I think I've told you before that one of the hindrances, one of the 5 hindrances in Buddhism, particularly in Theravada Buddhism, is known as udhatya in Pali, which is audhatya in Sanskrit, which means the state of being excited or kind of churned up. It's exactly the same. In fact, it's from udhata, literally up, hit up. And our old English phrase, if you're het up, it's exactly that. It's the same meaning, hit up, excited, and flustered. It's exactly that hindrance. So the udhata and our word het up, etymologically exactly reflect each other. And as also, I think we've mentioned here, of course I have quite recently, that the word han comes into Latin, the root han comes into Latin as fend, as in fendere, and to defend originally was to strike away. Your fence is what protects your area or defines your area from beyond your area. Originally the fence was something that kept out hostile people and animals. And also our word, the modern English word fencing, comes from that, the defense, defending, fencing has become. Manyate, this, actually, we've got such a plethora of entertaining verb forms in this verse. Manyate. Is anyone going to tell me what class verb this is?
Is it six because of the Y?
No, it's actually it's a class 4. The class six. I'll explain the difference. The class 4 is one that adds the ya into the ya onto the root, and this is a class 4 atmanepada. So it's not manati, but if it were parasmaipada, it would be manyati with the ya added in, but it's atmanepada, so it becomes manyate. Just means to think or to consider. And let me just tell you this as well. I'll call up the iPad. It's from, oops. Uh-oh. 'Cause I, 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 'cause Pali class yesterday. I was having a bit of a problem with it. Oh, here we are. Okay. So what's looking at man? It's the same root as the Latin mens, mentis, lamente, the mind. Same as our word mind. So it means, and as a verb, it just means anything, just thinking or considering. It makes so third singular. It's atmanepada, so it has the te, not the t ending, and it's got the year of class 4, manyate. You very often see in Pali. In Pali, it's they don't distinguish much. They do a little bit, but not fully. Between Atmanepada and Parasmaipada. So the equivalent in Pali becomes manyati. That's what you most commonly see in Pali. Whenever you get an and a ya as two separate consonants in Sanskrit, this almost always turns up as a double nya in Pali. For example, the word for other, anya in Sanskrit, that's the one that becomes anya in Pali. The theoretical difference, they be pronounced virtually the same in pronunciation. The theoretical difference is that Sanskrit regards it as a consonant cluster, a n followed by a consonantal y, and it regards it as two consonants. Whereas in Pali, it's a doubled nya. So in Pali, you very frequently see this expression, manye. Now, in Sanskrit, the first person singular of the Atmanepada goes manye. Manye, manyase, manyate. So the manye is I think. But this Pali form manye, you very often see as a colloquialism. If somebody says something, he's not quite sure about it, or he's just reporting what he heard or reporting what he thinks, he'll very often add manye at the end of it, meaning I'm not taking responsibility for it, but manye, which is very much like the English, old-fashioned English, methinks. Methinks mean so it seems to me. So that will explain the manye that you will sometimes see in Pali, which reflects the Sanskrit form manye. So the veti here, vidna means to know, but here it obviously has more the sense of to consider or to understand or think you know. So who knows it to be, wrongly knows it to be the killer, and who knows it, who regards it as manyate, as being killed. Ubhautau navijanito. Both of those categories of people do not or unaware. Na ayam hanti, this meaning the Atman, this that we're talking about, na ayam hanti, nahanyate, nor is it killed. So in the hanti here, we see the class 2 parasmaipada, third person singular, hanti. This is hanyate. Remember that the passive is just formed by putting a ya at the end of the root. The passive of a verb is completely independent of which class of verb it is. Remember the classes of verbs from 1 through to 10. They affect only the present, the imperfect, the imperative, and the optative. All other tenses of the verb are independent of the class of verb. So when you want to make a passive, the fact that it's a class 2 verb, han, is irrelevant now, because all you do is take the root and then to the root add the ya and the atmanepada ending. So hanyate, a pure passive, it is killed. Confusingly, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. Look at a word, root man, verb form manyate, root han, verb form hanyate. Okay, they looks as if they exactly reflect each other. No, they don't. Manyate, class 4, paras atmanepada, therefore not manati but manyate. And it reaches that point through an entirely different route, because hanyate, it takes that shape because it's a regular passive form.
So is there a passive form of manyate, and is it just exactly the same?
I cannot answer that question definitely. There's no reason. Yeah, there's no reason why there shouldn't be. Yeah, I think you can have something. Somebody. Then let's take this first. If somebody is hanta manyate, he is considered to be, is regarded as a murderer. Hanta manyate. So I think I'm right in saying that. I'm going to put my neck on the block now and test it in front of you. Let's see if Monia Williams helps us. Oops, I'm just going to get that off.
I guess even if it doesn't exist, my question is, hypothetically, you'd form the passive in the same way and it would look the same.
That does happen. That does happen, I'm afraid. Let's just check. Think, believe, suppose. Yeah, here we are. Look, manier, I think, methinks that's the one that has in Pali with a double nya. To regard. Very often you'll find that Monia Williams does not explicitly talk about a passive, even though a passive exists. So,
From what you said, James, it should be manyayate, shouldn't it?
Sorry,
Manyayate.
No. I'm going to explain this. So what happens is, okay, I'll come right back. If I forget, as I so often do, remind me, Barry. I do want to come back to you. So there are meanings here where it clearly is an ordinary transitive, to regard or consider anymore or anything as, with two accusatives. So I see absolutely no reason to say that it can't be used in the passive. I put my money on yes, it can be used in the passive. In which case, Palden, you are right. In form, it should be obvious from context which it is, but in form, there would be no distinction between the just the present atmanepada, he, she, it thinks, and the passive form manyate, it is thought. You get the same phenomenon with jayate, actually, from Jan. But again, that's irregular in that the an becomes an a, but the same principle applies. So jayate from class 1. No, it's a class 4, isn't it? With the n lost. So jayate, one is born. And then, oh no, hang on, no, in the passive would be janyate, he is given, but he is caused to be born. But anyway, back to this man, which is clear and plain. The answer is yes, Palden. There is an inherent ambiguity in of form. Barry, back to your question.
It sounds as though it says something ridiculously horrendous, James.
No, no, on the contrary, I think the very kind of question used to go through my mind in my first year of learning Sanskrit as well, maybe even beyond that as well. You wanted to put in an extra aimanyayate, did you?
Yeah, because that seems to be the rule that you were pointing out to make a passive.
No, because the whole point is, okay, class 4, man, it become, you add a ya.
Can we see the iPad, please,
Sorry,
James?
sorry, yeah, you're right. Thank you, Madeline. Oops. There we are. What happens, you might feel, if it were a class 1 parasmaipada, you would say manati, with that form. Don't think the form exists. If it does, some of these forms exist as a very rare form. Some of these forms, yeah, okay. Class 8-4, manute, manyate. Okay, it can be a class 8 as well. We won't complicate the matter with our class 8s right now. Class 4, okay, what do? We add a ya to the root. And it's an atmanepada verb, so the third person singular ending is te rather than ti. So man ya te. You can break it down. So a regular class 4 atmanepada verb. Is that clear so far?
Yeah, I understand that clearly, yeah.
Okay. Let's pause there. Now, we are going to make out of this same root a passive. Now, the fact that it's a class 4 verb, maybe you didn't hoist this on board when I said it earlier, the fact that it's a class 4 verb is completely irrelevant when we're forming the passive. To form the passive, you add the ya directly to the root. And that happens regardless of what class of verb it is. The class of verb it is completely irrelevant when we're talking about passives. So what do? For the passive, as normal, we add the ya and the atmanepada endings, manyate. So they both become manyate by different roots.
Yeah, I see.
There's no ground for the sticking in an extra manyayate.
And indeed, I remember you did say that it didn't matter what the class of the verb was.
Exactly so, yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Is there any doubt, hesitation, or confusion, or vichikicha, as they say in Pali, left about this? So, where were we? Here we are. Ubhau tau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. So nayam, of course, na ayam hanti nahanyate. So if you look here, sorry, I keep going to the Devanagari. If you look here, the manyate from the root man, it becomes manyate through one root because it's a class 4 atmanepada. Hanyate arrives at that form on the surface only, mirroring manyate, but there through a different route as a passive. Ubhau Ubhau just means both. This is the dual form. For the Pali students among you, the dual has been effectively almost entirely lost in Pali, but rigorously applied in Sanskrit. So ubhau tau, both those. This ubhau in fact, is closely reflected in, for example, in the Slovak, in Russian, both is oboj. In Latin, it sticks in an M, ambo, both, as in ambidextrous or ambivalent, having both meanings at the same time. Amphibian, having a life both lives, literally, a life on land and a life on sea. And the Tau is that's the M1D masculine one dual, masculine nominative dual. There is a bit of an extra burden of learning because the dual has its own separate declension in the nominals, that's the nouns, the adjectives, and also separate verb forms. So this is the Dnya is a class 9 verb. In other words, it adds in either a na or a ni between the root and the verb ending. And the characteristic verb ending for the third person dual is taha. So on its own is navijani taha. As you know, a very common verb from our root dnya, to know. Again, I'll explain this because you're going to see it again and again. I do not know is na janami. Let me explain that. Yeah, to know. Okay, that's a clear enough root. We've said many times. It's the same as through the German line, German kennen, and through our English to know. We still write the K, but we don't pronounce it. It's the root, the Greek gnosis, and it's the Latin gnoscere, as in cognoscere, and ignoscere, ignoro, I do not know, ignorance, lack of knowledge. Now, what happens is this is a class 9 verb, which means it puts in, it adds a na into the root. As you've got your Monia Willis, Macdonnell's grammar with you. It's at pages 102 and 103. By the way, Macdonnell's Sanskrit grammar, you've heard me speak about it many times. I'm constantly referring to it in the notes. It is one of the very, very small group of books that I do not like to be far parted from. It's one of the tiny number of books that I actually keep in a mini rack on my desk. So there's never any excuse not to reach straight out and to check. Other ones, one of the Dhammapada and Whitney's Sanskrit roots. So these are the ones immediately to hand. I would encourage you all to treat the Macdonnell's Sanskrit grammar for students in the same way. If it happens to be right next to you now and you open it at page 102 or 103, you will see the full conjugation of the class 9 verbs. What happens? Basically, it sticks in a na in some forms of the verb and a ni in the other forms of the verb. So what you would expect then, and I'm going to write it with an asterisk, you would expect to see, if it were a regular class 9, a person ending me, but with the na in the middle. So dnya plus the class 9 characteristic insertion plus the first person singular ending, and janami, janasi, janati. What has happened? Irregularly, the nya drops. So you don't say jnanami, you say janami. That is a slight irregularity in this verb. Class 9 verb, that's it, you would expect to see jnanami. What happens is that the ñ drops out, and that is what accounts for the form janami. So najanami, I do not know.
And James, can you make a passive out of that, just for interest?
You can.
I mean, do you put the ya before the na, or the ya before the, or leave out the na? Is it Jayan Nami, or is it Jayami?
Barry, you stand in severe risk of getting told off.
Oh, please tell me off. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Assertion of the na is a characteristic of class 9. We are now going to make a passive. So what is the effect? We are about to create a passive. What is the effect of the verb being a class 9 verb?
No effect at all.
Exactly. So it makes its passive regularly. Give us the passive now. Just say it is not known.
Jnayati.
Nyayate.
Jnayate.
Just remember, in the passive, you always use the atmanepada form.
Oh, right. Okay.
Not because it's inherent, because when you see this passive, the atmanepada ending, it's either because it's an atmanepada verb or because it's in the passive. Those are the okay. So nyaya, it is not known. Nadnyayate.
Nanyanyate. No.
Nadnyayate. Yeah. So this, by the way, the pronunciation of the j followed by this n with a tilde, the ñ form. I used to pronounce it very clumsily before I learned better, the jnya, but it's not. It's pronounced more like a ñ. You put the tongue. I think people pronounce this in different ways in different parts of India. I'm going to ask you about it in a moment, Marco, for the way you've been taught. But what appears to happen is that you put your tongue, the tip of your tongue, as if you were going to say j, as a palatal, j. However, before you get to the j bit, you move straight onto the ñ, to the ñ. So ñ, as if the j stop. Remember, the j consists of two sounds, and we write it with one letter in English with a j. But the French recognize it as two sounds. So, Madeleine, if ever you're writing French and you need to write the j sound, in French you write it as a d followed by a j. Otherwise, it would be a j. So it's the same kind of thing as happening here with nyayate. Hindi speakers just pronounce it as a g. So for jnana, they just pronounce gyan. Marathi speakers tend to pronounce it in the classical way as a ñ sound. If you hear the Brahmins chanting, they tend to pronounce it as a ñ. So Marco, what pronunciation have you been taught for that sound?
Gnya, yes, gnya. But at the university, often they pronounce it jna, which I've never heard in India by any Indian speaker.
No, I'm afraid like you, I don't quite approve of jna. It's I mean, there are some YouTubes I've seen of Brahmins, actually carefully teaching people how to pronounce chants, and it comes across pretty clearly as a ñ. So, Marco, could you repeat slowly and clearly your preferred forms?
Gnya, gnya, gnya.
With a g, then.
Gnya, yes.
Yeah, okay. That seems to be a combination of the Hindi form and another with a ñ. Do you know what part of India that pronunciation came from? Because
Maybe
it does
just
this one sound varies more than any other sound depending which part of India you're from.
But it's quite a subtle difference, James. I mean, because I was trying to kind of replicate it in Greek, and it's sort of gnya, but it doesn't sound quite like you say it. But to kind of get to what you're saying, I think it requires a lot of practice.
It does require a bit of practice, and you're right, Paola. It is a subtle difference. I don't think it matters terribly much. All I can say is my preferred form is the way I've had it from the the YouTubes that you see about the Brahmins chanting the Vedas. Okay, that's the best I'm likely to get. But I do recognize that people from different parts of India would pronounce it differently.
So can you just do this gnya thing once more, please?
My preferred form, you mean?
Yes, please.
Okay, nya, nya. So it's not, you don't put if you're saying a d, you put your tongue a tiny bit further back, not as far back as a d, but d. But for a j, it's at where it comes out as a ch, j, your tongue is just behind the ridge of the teeth. So put your tongue there, get halfway through the j, but not to the j bit while it's still on the d bit, and then go with a nya, nya, nya. If you hear people pronouncing...
So is there a bit of a D somewhere at the beginning?
It is exactly a bit of a D, but it's not the pure dental D. It's the D that begins the kind of the double sound j. Remember, j is like a double sound, a d and a j. That's where the French write it as a D and a J as two separate sounds. You don't have the sound in Greek, or naturally you don't have it in Greek. You write it in Greek. If you want to represent a J, if you're writing my name in Greek, you start off with a DZ, wouldn't you? Or a TZ.
Yeah. This is kind of a long story, yes, but because of Greek and the English things. But
that's right.
It's similar, but I mean, it's a very long story.
It is a very long story. Fun though it is, I don't think we'd better go into it here. So, as I say, my preferred form.
But would you say it would be dgnya? So gnya is the dgnya.
Gnya is the one that Marco has heard, though whether that was from a Hindi... No, a Hindi speaker would tend just to say gya as if it were gy, a gip form. Gyan, a gyani is a man of knowledge in Hindi. So I would say it doesn't matter terribly much. This is just my preferred form. Of course, in classical Greek, it's a gna, which in modern Greek becomes the g is more of a r sound. Gnosis, but it's the same word, and in Latin the g remains cognosco, but it's that gn that becomes a kind of a ñ sound in Italian. Cogno. Pronounce it in Italian for us, Marco.
We just dropped the G, conosco.
Conosco,
nowadays.
Yes. Conosco, of course, yeah. And in French, connaître. Again, you drop the G, but write it with a double N in French. Connaître, which is from that same root. By the way, cognoscere, the Latin prefix co and con, of which the essential meaning is with, but a number of other meanings as well, including if the fulfillment of something, is directly cognate with the Sanskrit and Pali prefix sam. So, sanya, like knowing something with something else, is directly cognate with Latin cognoscere. So in the five khandas, or in Sanskrit, the five skandhas, we have in sanya in Sanskrit, sanya in Pali, and that is cognition. And the word cognition is directly cognate with sanya. And that means a knowing accompanying another knowing. So, for example, you have the bare information of the senses, your sense data impacting the brain. And then the knowing that arises on top of that is the identification of it, knowing what it is. That's the co-knowing, a knowledge of what it is beyond the bare knowledge of the sensory input. And in English, lo and behold, you do it twice. You recognize. So when we recognize, it is a repeated act of co-knowing. Ooh, I've known that from before. I repeat that act of cognition. I recognize something. So the cognition will be, in this sense, the identification. The recognition is, ooh, I know that from before. I've identified it from before. I know what it is. I know who it is. So remember, whenever you're using a word like recognize, that's the modern English form of the old Sanskrit sanya, Pali sanya. I identify it, sanjanami. I don't recognize nasanjanami. So hopefully we have some clarity. Is there anything in which I have been less than clear?
Maybe, James, here we have 3 different verbs, and it seems to give more value to the last one. So we have to think, man, and then we have to know, vit, and then vijnana, having the consciousness of something, a deeper knowledge.
Okay, are you talking specifically about this verb?
Yeah.
Or is it said in the Roman? Yeah. This verb. Sorry, I'm just going to grab a glass of water quickly. I'm talking away in a hot room.
Marco, could you please repeat what you said?
That here there are 3 verbs utilized to express a similar meaning: vetti, maniate, and vijanita. But in a way, in the last sentence, it sounds like there is more value in the 3rd verb. It's more closer to describe the reality.
So,
thank you.
Vijanita, navijanita. Without the V, or just janita, meaning they too know. The two of them know. Normally this prefix vi, it's the what we call the separative prefix. Do you all remember what I've told you? Have I discussed at length the meaning of vi and the... Not even with you, Paladin?
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yes, you have. I didn't know it was called a separative prefix, but when you said
right,
"vi," I knew what you were talking about.
So separate, that's my own word for it. But the prefix vi, I'll just mention briefly, and if anyone wants me to. I've surely discussed it in your presence, haven't I, Chris?
I remember, James, you explained it like the word vigraha. It means to remove,
Yeah.
to remove the sandhi. It means to separate. Graha is to grasp. That's what I
okay.
remember.
Yes, vigraha, taking out. We have the as for example here, that's the sandhi vigraha. You take out the sandhi. You write the words without. But the best way of remembering this, the meaning of vi, is it actually sounds much more complicated until you realize how simple it is. The prefix vi. I mean, okay, let's deal with this verb, vijanito, the separative, the idea of separating one thing from another. And you can do it physically and you can do it mentally. Viveka is, you know, separating one thing from another. In fact, the old meaning of vich is it's got an agricultural meaning, winnowing, you know, separating the wheat from the chaff. So viveka first has a physical meaning of separation, and then by extension it has a mental meaning. So viveka means the ability to discriminate between true and false. The most fun way to remember it is that the old form of the prefix, even pre-Vedic, was identical with the numeral 2, TWO. So the idea was you split something in two. So which was a dvi or dwa in Indo-European, and we retain it in all the Indo-European languages, this d there. So when it came into Vedic, the form for the numeral 2, dwa and dvi, remained with the d and a w, dwa, dvi. But when used as a verbal prefix, the d dropped off. That's why it's just the v. Now, when that same prefix made its way westwards and finished up in ancient Rome, you see now, if we go back to Latin for two, duo, is it due in Italian? See, the two. There you have the d and the w together. But when it was used as a prefix, it did the opposite of what happened in Sanskrit. It retained the letter D, but dropped the w. So when in Latin you see the prefix de or di or dis, it's the same as the Sanskrit and Pali vi. It's the same one. So whenever you look at, and which of course we've got thousands of words in the language, you can go on inventing words. If you've got a bug in your computer, you can debug your computer. You can defenestrate somebody, meaning throwing somebody out of the window. Which sometimes can mean down a bit, as in depressed, pressed down. I mean, there are so many words with a D and a die. All you need to remember is that when we're looking at a V, you are looking at that same prefix. Even the word kri or krim originally meant to judge. And that's why a krimen is that for which you can become as crime, is that for which you can be judged. And so to discriminate is therefore to judge one thing from another, to be able to know what is true, what is false, what is good, what is bad. So now look at vijnana. It's a kind of what you might call a separative knowledge, a knowing that you know. It's in the khandhas, or Sanskrit skandhas, there are traditional 5 skandhas. The 5th and last of them is in Pali vijnana, Sanskrit vijnana. So what is it? You've got your rupa, vedana, sanya, the sankhara, the mental formations. Sorry?
So I was just wondering if you're using the iPad.
No, I wasn't. All this is coming out orally. Okay. So the vijnana is the kind of the background knowing. You see, you've got a direct kind of knowledge coming in through your senses, kind of coming into your brain, your direct raw data coming in of the senses, which is a form of knowledge. But you can see what's going on within your mind. You can see the vedana, you can see the sanya, you can see the sankhara. In other words, you know that you know. That's the vijnana, the kind of separate knowing that I know. So you've got the sanya, the knowing with the recognition of something, knowing what it is. But further back and above that is the faculty of vijnana, the kanda of vijnana, knowing that you know, translated typically as consciousness, conskire, you know, which effectively is knowing that you know. That's used in the specialist Buddhist psychology sense. In ordinary speech, it's sometimes not that different from mere knowing. For example, you might talk about, we do the same in English. We can use words in a technical sense or in a rather looser sense. For example, when a doctor is saying, is the patient conscious? He's using that word in a kind of technical sense. Does the patient know what's happening, or whatever doctors mean by it? He's using that word. There's a technical meaning if a doctor uses that word, especially if an anaesthetist uses that word, a highly technical meaning there. But equally, we can use it in a colloquial way. I am conscious that you like sugar in your coffee, so I will put some there. I mean, that's very colloquial, non-specialist use of that term. And you do occasionally find the same kind of thing. Well, occasionally, you often find the same kind of thing in Sanskrit as we have here. So without the vi, it wouldn't mean that much different. Maybe some slight difference in tone. Ubho no navijanito, so they do not know. But here it could mean they don't have the power to distinguish. They don't have the power to distinguish, you know, correct from incorrect. So don't read a lot into the vijnana of the five skandhas, but don't necessarily read that much into the way we see the word here.
And do you spell vijnana as V-I and then G-N-A-N-A or J?
I'm sorry, say again.
Vijnana?
Oh, vijnana. Okay. Let me.
How do you spell? Yeah.
Okay. So again, it's from our root nya, and with the stem form of the verb, say, or the root with prefix is vidnya. It makes its verbal noun regularly. In fact, as you know, there are many ways of forming a verbal noun, but one very common one is just to add na, a short na to the end. So that's which gives us vijnana. That's the one that's typically translated as consciousness. And we see the common phenomenon here. The nya of Sanskrit is the one that becomes the double nya of Pali. By a strange quirk of phonetics, okay, appreciate this is a Sanskrit class, not a Pali one, but remember the word jnana, vijnana, it's always written with a subdotted N in Pali, so jnana, vijnana. And whenever you have a verb that's of a certain class, like this, janami, if you put a prefix on the front, that doesn't change anything. It's just vidjanami, vidjanati. And as here in the text we're looking at, second dual, vijanitaha. So does that deal with your query, Paola? Okay, she left us for a moment. So, so we'll have, I'll just read it through once more, and then we could have some recitation of it.
Thank you, James.
I
think you made very clear the translation of the five skandhas, which sometimes is a bit confusing in English terms otherwise. I thought that vijnana in this case could also possibly be interpreted as deep knowledge, or like in Vipassana, deep vision, insight.
So do you mean in the case of the skandhas, or in the case of this verse here? Did you mean?
In the case of Vijnana, and also possibly in this verse.
Okay,
with,
right.
Vijanito.
I tend not to think so. I'll tell you why. Because even a very ignorant bala, a very ignorant and stupid person, will still have vijnana, just as one of the five khandhas, whereas the ignorant person will not have vipassana. So vipassana is more like an advanced faculty. It's an advanced ability of your mind, literally seeing into things. Again, vipassana, Sanskrit vipassana. Again, there are separative prefix root. The idea is you're splitting the veil, you're seeing into something. So the idea of separation there is like penetrating the veil, penetrating the surface, opening the curtain. So
is that a word that's got a colloquial use as well, James, or is that just a technical term for that practice? Vipassana.
Vipassana.
I've never heard it. I've never heard it used other than in the sort of technical Buddhist practice sense. But then I've not read everything where it might be.
I don't think that I have seen it used. I can't say it's not used. I don't think it's commonly used outside the Buddhist sense, as in vipassana meditation. I'm just going to check the interesting point you've raised there. Okay. I've looked up Moni Williams. Vipassana. He doesn't give Vipassana with a long R, but okay, that doesn't matter. But he gives Vipassana for right knowledge. Okay, well, this is just a Moni Williams interpretation. But he specifically identifies it as a Buddhist term. So not as a term of regular Sanskrit. I'm just seeing whether, oops, what's right on here? Oops. I'm just seeing whether it appears as, okay, vidrish, because the drish and pash there, this is called a suppletive verb. You get one root taking the place of another. So to be clearly visible. In other words, to be clear, like to make it stand out. It might have blurred mass of stuff, but if you clearly see one thing, that is, you make it stand out. Distinct, you see? Standing out and obvious. So yes, so the word does then appear in Sanskrit, but very few references to it, a couple of references to become clearly visible. But then it was just a word of the language that took on then its specialized meaning in Buddhist usage. So the answer is yes, the word exists as a general word of the language, Paladin, but it's in the things that we are likely to be reading, we'd probably only see it in its specialized Buddhist meaning. So normally I have to leave fairly promptly at 3 because of other things I'm doing after that, which are not happening today. So I, for one, am able to stay on for a bit. So what we could do, I mean, we're scheduled to finish at 3. If anyone needs to leave, please feel free. But otherwise, I'm happy to stay on, and we can do a few recitations of this verse. So you're free to stay or go exactly as you wish, of course. So, Madeleine, would you like to start with a recitation of the verse?
Yes, certainly. Ya enam veti hantaram yash chainam manyate hatam ubhautauna vijanito Nayam hanti na hanyate.
Okay, very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
There's one small thing. Can you pronounce this word again?
Vichi.
Now, remember, in Pali, that's how you would pronounce it. For example, an E followed by a consonant cluster would be pronounced short. For example, in Pali, you say metta. Remember, in Sanskrit, the A is always pronounced long, even if it's followed by a double consonant. So you don't say veti, but veti. Veti, a long A followed by a double T.
Veti.
Yeah. Veti.
Veti. Oh, yes.
It's a little bit unnatural.
Yes.
Now, the Italians are very good at pronouncing the long, pure E, and the Italians are very good at pronouncing the double T.
Yeah.
Otto, detto. But we're going to see in a moment whether the Italians are equally good at pronouncing the long, pure E followed by the doubled T. There's a temptation to shorten it, and Pali speakers do, but in Sanskrit we shouldn't. So over to you, Marco, please.
Yaenam veti hantaram yascha inam manyate hatam ubautau na vijanito nayam hanti nahanyate.
Okay, thank you, Marco. That was really interesting from one particular point, because you did a doubling, but only a very, very slight doubling of the T. And I'm wondering whether that was because of the meter. Because if you had a long A and then a consonant cluster, you might make the syllable too long and heavy. So it seemed to me that the way you chanted it, you recognized that it was a double T, but you didn't hang on to it too long, because otherwise you would spoil the rhythm of the chant.
Yeah, James, I think it was because you warned us on this point. So
you, in fact, I'm no expert on this. It's just something I've seen, that in the printed editions of the Vedas, like if you go back to the Rig Veda, you will see, I can't offhand think of any examples, but you will see sometimes a little 3 written above a syllable, just the figure 3, because there's a strict meter. There's a single matra, double matra, that's regular, the light syllable, the heavy syllable. But when you write the numeral 3 above it, that's an indication to the chanter that the syllable is 3 matras long. And it may well be that in pure Vedic chanting, this is a 3 matra syllable, Veti, the long A, which is 2, and the doubled T, which adds an extra single matra length. I don't actually know I know about the 3, but I don't know whether this would qualify as a 3 in Vedic.
interesting.
Yeah.
Never find anything like this.
Okay, I'll see if I can find anything before the next class. Okay, thank you very much, Marco. So we're round to you, Chris.
Ya enang veti antarang yaschainang mayante atam.
I think you missed the end there. Manyate. Yeah, good. That's it. Yes.
Abal tau na vijanito nayam anti na antyate.
Nahanyate. Excellent. Right. I'm going to bring you back to the most difficult word there. That was the veti. You did the long A very correctly, but with just a single T. Just hold that T a little bit longer. Veti. Sorry?
veti,
That's better, but just don't be shy of holding the T. Veti.
veti.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
that one, Chris. You got that right. Okay.
Okay.
So, Anne, we're round to you.
I'll try a chant. Ya
Please do.
enam veti hantaram, yaschainam manyate hatam, ubautau na vijanitu, nayam hanti nahanyate.
Okay, that was very nice, Anne. And you had this special kind of rhythm. And if you had really held that double T there, it would have spoilt your special rhythm. So it almost requires a bit of a compromise, which I think you did correctly. So you gave the full length to the A, but you shortened that T a bit. If you tried to chant it holding that full double T, it would have kind of spoiled your rhythm a little bit, stuck in a matra or even a half matra there. But okay, that was very nice. Thank you. Barry, would you like to have a go?
Yeah, I think I'll have tried to chant it as well, James, if I may.
Okay, well, yes. I mean, you have advanced by leaps and bounds. Even to the extent of learning now that if you're forming a passive, it's got nothing to do with what class the verb is.
Thank you, James. Okay. Yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate atam upautau na vijanito nayam hantina hanyate.
I really enjoyed that. That was that sounded more kshatriya rather than Brahmin. That sound almost had a kind of military drumbeat to it. I enjoyed that one. Thank you, Barry. That was great. Halden, we're round to you.
I'm not going to try and chant, I don't think. Ya enam veti hantaram, yaschaina manyate hatam, upautauna vijanito, nayam hanti nahanyate.
Okay, right, pretty good. Just say veti again. Since you're not chanting it, you can give the full value to the A and the full value to the double consonant. Because there's no rhythm to spoil if you want chanting it.
I'll run into it. Ya enam veti.
Yes, okay, that's nice. Also remember, by the way, and Marco, I'm going to ask you how you've learnt to do it. Where you get the anuswara, our sub-dotted M, which actually I've forgotten to write here. It should be a sub-dotted M there. There we are. Where you get it before the letter H, the letter H comes out from roughly the same place as the K and the G and the H. So the anuswara comes out as a Ng, Nayang Hanti, Nahanyate. How have you learnt it, Marco? The anuswara before the hakara.
Nayam. Nayan Hanti. It sounds like an N.
Ah, because the way I'd learnt was Nayang with a Ng, as in ahankara, anga, that Ng sound.
Possibly I'm just wrong. Yeah.
I'm just either that or either that or I'm wrong, or we're both right, which is highly likely, I hope, and these are just two valid alternatives. At this distance and time, of course, we can't be too dogmatic as to how it was pronounced. But on the other hand, what I prefer to do is just follow the wonderful model that we have. As I mentioned many times, there's no shortage of genuine Brahmins doing genuine Sanskrit chanting on YouTube. I mean, there's no shortage of it. Okay, thank you for that assistance, Marco. Do you feel inclined to have a go, Paola? No obligation, of course.
James, I can't today. Thank you.
Okay, not to worry. Not to worry. Okay, so this brings us now to just gone 10 past 3. So we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks from now. I think will be our last session before the summer break. So I will thank you all and see you in two weeks' time.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye then.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
James.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.